Hey everyone, this is Chrissy with Tackling the Giants, and I wanted to do a video today regarding the month. So, is this the 13th month, or are we in the month of Aviv, the first month? So, I'm going to share with you my family's decision and why we chose what we did. There's conflicting reports, and it's just based on um, everybody's understanding, and we're all trying to do our best. So I pray that you pray about what I show you, and if you want to take this into consideration and do your own research and study, then it might help you in your decision. Okay, so the first and most important witness is whether the barley is Aviv or not. Now, this being said, there are conflicting reports about whether to consider this month Aviv or not. These questions remain. What is meant by Aviv? How much barley needs to be Aviv? Do you go by wild barley or cultivated barley? Can it be Aviv if one patch or one field is Aviv, but the rest is far from Aviv? Was it a national barley offering for all of Israel, or individual offerings that everyone had to make? And if so, were they all to be given by the time of first fruits? So all of these questions remain, and due to this, I prayed for guidance, and the scripture about flax came to my mind soon after. And hence, this is why I'm making this video, because I figured it might help some other people. This is the scripture that came to my mind, and this is in reference to Israel before they left Egypt. So this was, during the time of the plagues that were rained down upon the Egyptians. So in Exodus chapter 9, it says, "And the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in the ear, and the flax was bold. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up." So the word here that I want you to pay attention to is bold, and it's H1392. And you can see I have the Hebrew on here with the Strong's number. Okay. So I carried it over on here, and the definition that it says here is bud, which is kind of like general. It's not a lot to go on. Is it like a flower budding? And some people believe that's what it means. But I looked more into this, and I don't think that that's what it means. So when a flower starts to bud, you have what's known, and I'm gonna go over this, but you have a green part, which is known as the calyx, that's around a flower, and it starts to open up. And then when it starts to open up, the flower is revealed. But I believe that this is actually after the flower has been fertilized and it's closed up. So it looks like a bud in the same sense, because there's two parts, and I'm going to show you on a slide how they look the same, but one is before it's even opened up, before it's fertilized, and one is after. So we see here that it's from H1375, which I'm going to go over in a little while also. But it says the calyx of a flower, again, bold. And here it says the flax was bud or in bud. So I'm going to go over all this and look into things and really research this with you guys. So there's also this definition here, which it says calyx, corolla of flowers. And then it says, once used of flax in Exodus 9:31, which is what we're going over, for the barley was in the ear and the flax in the corolla. So here, 9:31 says the barley was in the ear and the flax was bold. So at some point it says, that it was translated as the flax in the corolla. So we need to keep this in mind. These are the words, right? Calyx of the flower, bold, which is literally what the King James translates it as, and corolla. Okay, so these are all potential synonyms, potential words that mean the same thing. Okay, and then it says the flax had the corollas of flowers. So what does the corolla of a flower mean? Well, it says here that it's used in the Mishnah in speaking of the corollas of flowers on the top of the stalks of hyssop, which almost look like ears of corn. Okay, so I'm going to show you a picture of that, and then I'll come back to that. I kind of probably should have put this on there, but next, but I didn't for some reason. So this here is the same thing I was just reading from. This is a picture of hyssop. So when it says, once used of flax, that the flax in the corolla, in other words, the flax had corollas of flowers, and we're saying, well, what is corollas of flowers? And it says that in the Mishnah, when it's speaking of corollas of flowers, it means the top of the stalks of hyssop that look almost like ears of corn. That's this. That's this right here. Doesn't that look like an ear of corn? And it's like these little circles on there, okay, versus the flowers here that are obviously open. And here's another one that's on the top, and then you can see some here. So they're like closed flowers, right? They look like a circle. And so you can see, and keep that in mind when we go over the rest, because I think that's going to help. Okay, so let me get back where I was. Okay, so now that you've seen that, we're going to keep in mind calyx, bold, and corolla for potential words, and we're going to go over this 1375 also, and that's going to give us some more clues. So I have the same slide here, or the same picture here, and I'm showing from 1375. So I have 1375 up here in the Hebrew word, and it's translated as cup or bowl, but it says that down here it's meaning to be convex. So when we think of a cup or a bowl, we actually think of concave. Concave is like an actual cup or a bowl that we're thinking of. Like if you have a cup and you pour water into it, it's because it's concave. So it can, oh, sorry, yeah, it's concave. So you're able to put something inside of it. So that's not the case here. This is convex. So convex here, it says a goblet, or again the calyx of a flower. So I think that the reason that it can be meaning cup or a bowl is because the calyx of a flower can actually like open up, and whenever it opens up, um, it is cave like a cup or a bowl. But this here, it's specifically saying that like that's not what it's meaning. It's when it's convex, like when it's closed. So let's talk about this a little more. So the calyx of a flower is the sepals of a flower, typically forming a whorl that encloses the petals and forms a protective layer around a flower in bud. So if we look at convex, it says having an outline or a surface curved like the exterior of a circle or a sphere. So that's literally, think of a letter N and the top of an N that's curved. That's convex. Okay. So that would be indicative of a closed flower, which I'm going to show you pictures of all this to help y'all visualize these things. But also, so concave would be the opposite of that. It would be like the letter U, okay, where you could literally, like a cup, you could pour something in it. And then bold is usually a roundish pod or capsule of some plant, such as cotton or flax. So literally, flax in modern terminology today has a meaning with bold. So that that's going to be helpful in understanding this. Okay. So the meaning on this, I'm going to give you a brief description of kind of like all of this and what I understand this to mean. And then I'm going to try to prove that to you based on pictures and information and definitions and things. Okay. So based on the verse, my understanding is that it doesn't seem to mean budding or in bloom as some people teach. Based on my research of the flax stages, it flowers before producing a seed, and when it produces seeds, the flower closes, which is convex, like the calyx of a flower. In other words, a closed flower. So in this case, after it has been fertilized and has formed the seeds, okay? So I searched if the flax would be ruined by hail in this stage, and the answer is yes. And also, the scripture seems to indicate the barley is at the harvesting stage. As we know, Aviv is the earliest that the barley can be harvested, as well as the flax. because it makes a contrast in stating, but the wheat and rye were not grown up. In other words, the barley and the flax were grown up enough to be harvested. So let me go back to that just to explain what I mean. So it says, the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in the ear and the flax was bold. But, right, it's making a contrast. The wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up. So to me, it's indicating that the wheat and the rye were destroyed because they weren't grown up. But the flax and the barley were, because they were grown up enough to be harvested. That's my understanding based on that. But I also am going to give you guys more information that I believe proves this later here in a little bit. Okay, so back to this. If my assessment's correct, this would not be in favor of an Aviv month. My family is going to, we're considering this a 13th month, and I'm going to go into it even more as to why. So interestingly, and I find this likely confirms my findings, cotton and flax both have the term boil or boll for when the flower closed after it's fertilized to make the seeds within as a fruit does. So here's the definition. The capsules of flax are called bolls, and the bolled flax is the mature flax, ready for harvesting and drying. Bundles of flax are soaked in water for 3 to 4 weeks, and this causes what's called retting. The fibers separate, and it's only then that the threads can be combed. So when it says that they were bold, it means that they were way past the flowering stage and actually ready for harvest. Now, there's obviously stages before the flowering stage, but I don't find them relevant, so I'm going to include the flowering and the maturation period. So keeping in mind that it was reported that the flax was in full bloom as of March the 10th, this means there is still at least another month until it is mature enough for harvest or bold, as seen here. Okay, it takes at least a month after the flowering stage. So the flowering period, it says after the vegetative phase, flax transitions into flowering. So this stage is typically spans 15 to 25 days. The plant produces flowers, attracting pollinators. Successful pollination leads to seed formation. The maturation period, once pollination occurs, flax enters the maturation phase, lasting 30 to 40 days. During this time, seeds develop and mature. Water stress, high temperatures, and disease can impact the duration. And then here's the definition of boll. As a verb, it is to form a bowl or a seed vessel, to go to seed. So literally, boll here is in reference to a seed, to go to seed. Okay, that's literally what it means. Now, that you see here, okay, so this website here is where I got this information on growth stages that are listed below. And then this picture is not from that, but I just thought it would be helpful. So you can see these are little circles. And I mean, they look similar, I think, to this as being little circles, right? And these are the bowls. These are the capsules that are that the flax is contained in, the seeds. These are the little seeds. It kind of reminds me of garlic almost, like little individual bulbs there. But anyways, so you can see that it's circled, okay, and it fits that definition. And these are the stages, which also line up with what I just read. So you have, this is in reference to the stages. You have the germination, the leaf development, the inflorescence emergence, the flowering stage, okay, and then the development of bolls. You can see that it's after the flowering stage that the bolls develop, okay, and then this stage lasts till nearly all of them reach their final size. So the bolls is something totally different from flowering, okay, it's after the flowering. And then there's that picture. And then the corolla, which I think we went over, but I want to stress it again, that it is the petals of a flower, typically forming a whorl within the sepals and enclosing the reproductive organ. So it encloses around it, it encapsulates around it. And the bowl is a roundish pod or capsule of some plants like cotton and flax. So when we go specifically to the flax, you can see here that this says to harvest mature flax and collected seeds, you wait until 90% of the seed capsules, also known as bolls, right? So this is the capsule and these are the bolls. This is what it's meaning for when the flax was bolled. That this is literally what it means, even today. So you wait till 90% turn brown. Okay. So you can see that this is the calyx that's closed up, right? It's like, it almost looks like kind of like an acorn or something, but basically it's the same thing. And here they're green, so they're not quite mature yet. And then here they're turning brown. So it says flax is a self-pollinating crop. Seed is produced in a boll or a capsule. The complete boll can have 10 seeds, but most bolls will have fewer, averaging around 6 seeds. So that's what this picture here is. That's what these are, and you can see the seeds contained within this bowl. Okay, so they're saying 6 to 10 seeds is usually roughly what it has. Okay, so the website up there, this goes over the stages, and I'm not going to go over this too much, but just reinforce that there's a flowering stage and then the ripening stage. You can see here's in full flower, okay, and this is late flower. And then the seeds, when the seeds are starting to be produced, you can see this is where the capsules are. So here's the green capsule, and this is the brown capsule. Okay, this is whenever it's harvested. So obviously, this comes after the flowering stage, and according to everything, it's about 30 to 40 days or whatever after the flowering stage. So again, here's another witness. It says that there's a 15 to 25 day flowering period, and the maturation period is 30 to 40 days. Okay, so this is cotton, but I think this is a really good example because, like it says, that boil typically refers to cotton or flax. So in this case, the boil is the rounded mature fruit of the cotton plant. Okay, so we see this is cotton boil right here. Now, you can see that this isn't referred to as a boil because there's no seed that's been fertilized, or there's nothing that's been fertilized that can turn into the seed until this point. But this was very similar, and this will be completely closed where there won't be anything poking out at some point, and then it'll open up and then it reveals the flower. So you can see this is bud. So they almost look the same, right? They look the same. So you could call it kind of like a bud, but the difference is that one, it hasn't even started flowering yet, and it's not fertilized. And then the second one is it's already flowered and it's closed and it's fertilized and it's coming to maturation to where you can actually harvest it. And I know that this is what it's referring to because of scripture that I'm going to show you at the end. But also, I showed you the contrast that one was, grown up, and basically it was saying the others weren't. But I'll go over that in a little bit. Okay. So here, I was trying to think, what can I compare this to modern day today, where you go in the grocery store, something that you can look at. Because when we buy flaxseed, it's already out of the boil, right? It's already out of there, and it's just the seed. And then if you actually do buy cotton, it's already taken from the plant too. Like, you're not going to see that. So a tomatillo is what came to my mind. So I searched it, what is the paper around a tomatillo? And it is the calyx. That's the calyx. It says tomatillos also come wrapped in a papery husk, which is actually the calyx growing as the fruit matures inside. So this fits the entire description. The calyx, the corona, the circle, that's like an N, like I was trying to tell you. All of this where the seed is inside, it's bold, just like the scripture says that the flax was bold. So here you can see this is a flower of a tomatillo, and once it gets fertilized, then that flower closes up kind of like this. I don't know if this one's opening or closing at this point, but basically it'll close up. Um, and sometimes the petals will fall off, sometimes they remain. It just depends. I'm not sure actually on a tomatillo what it is, but it depends on the species of the plant and fruit or whatever. But basically, this calyx encloses over the the what's got fertilized, and it makes into a fruit, and then this will be around the fruit. So in this picture you can see that this calyx is over the fruit inside that was produced. Same here, here's your fruit, and then the calyx covers it over it, just like, well, like here, right? Because this is the calyx. This actually starts to open up a little bit because the cotton gets so big that it pushes it open as the calyx ends up drying up. But when we go back to the picture of the flax, I'm not so sure that this actually does that. But you can see it's the same thing. You know, that's over, it's over the seed. And again, here, you can see it's over the seed, so it protects the seeds. You have to open it up and get the seeds out. Okay, so let me go to the next one. So some more scripture to consider, which is more confirmation. So in Leviticus chapter 23, it says, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you've come into the land that I give you and shall reap the harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest." So we know at the time of coming into the land, the promised land, was the time of harvest. And this is what I'm reiterating here. And I'm going to show you what is significant and things that we need to consider. So in Joshua chapter 3, it says, "And those that bore the ark were come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bore the ark were dipped in the brim of the water. For Jordan overflows all his banks all the time of harvest." So this was a big deal because the Jordan was, it was swollen, right? It had a lot of water in it, a lot more water, because it was the time of harvest. So when they were coming in to enter into the land, it's showing that it was the time of harvest. It literally says that it's because it was the time of the harvest. So it's very important here. And when I'm trying to show how this relates in the time against when they come against Jericho. So we see in Joshua chapter 2, it says, "She, being Rahab, brought them up to the roof of the house and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof." Now, this is in Joshua chapter 2. This is whenever they sent spies out to spy the land of Jericho, and or to spy out all the land in order to know, like, what they needed to do to come against it and so on. And so this was before then, okay? And so keep that in mind, because in Joshua chapter 4, it says the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. So they came up out of the Jordan, right, on the 10th day of the first month. So at the 10th day of the first month, they had crossed the Jordan. And so this was before then. And they already had stalks of flax that they had harvested. Okay. So this proves, when you go back to, okay, so I'll go back to that in a minute. We'll go to Joshua 15. It says the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho. So on the 10th day, they crossed the Jordan, and then on the 14th day, they kept Passover. But we see that before that, all this, they sent spies, and there was already stalks of flax that were laid off on the roof because they were laying them out to dry them out. So, because they had already harvested them, they had already harvested the flax. So they weren't in a flowering stage because they wouldn't have harvested it. So if you go back, that makes complete sense, because the entire scripture, it says, "The flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in the ear," which we know what this is. The barley is aviv, so it could be harvested. That's the earliest of the harvest. "And the flax was bold." Okay, but I just told you what bold is. That's where it's it's ripening. So that's where you would, that would be the time of harvesting. Okay. Remember, 90% of the seed capsules are the bolls. Okay. So that's when the barley was able to be harvested. So they had already harvested the flax. Okay. So March the 10th, the flower was in full bloom. Okay. And if you go back the the person who was reporting that I watched their videos and stuff on, if they actually aren't doing a 13th month, they believe it's the first month. But if you go back 2 years ago to their videos, you'll see that when they reported the flax, then it was in full bloom as well. But that year, they added a 13th month. And we added a 13th month that year also. So you can see that that's like different this year. They're wanting to say it's the first of the month, but then 2 years ago, when the flax was in that stage, they added 13 months. So, I mean, of course, it's because the barley, and everybody has different understandings of barley, but the flax is a very important witness here according to the scriptures. So when we have this conflicting information, and I prayed to God about it, and this verse, the flax came to my mind. Um, to me, I feel like this is like the confirmation that I needed. Okay. So, in the end, I want to say that I appreciate everyone's barley reports, and I understand there are others who will come to a different conclusion, and that's okay. I also understand some go by different calendars and things besides the barley. I have videos on why I believe a 13th month is biblical and proof of one being in the Bible. Um, the one thing that I think that we can all agree on is that this is very important. The fact that we are at the very least coming together to talk about these things, is a huge accomplishment from recent times past when many of us knew nothing about this. So let us continue to pray for guidance and unity in this. And when Yeshua comes, he will set us all straight. Until then, we all need to pray for understanding and peace in what you do and what your family decides. And I hope that you all have a good day. And until next time, I'll see you again. Thank you.